Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Inside the Cover Book Club with me, your host, GIL ROLON. Today, we're going to get to interview the author of this month's book, and that book is How Snowflake Finds Her Courage. And the author of this children's book is my guest, Sandy DIPIERRO. Let me tell you a little bit about Sandy before we start our interview. Sandy has lived for most of her life in Hamilton Township, New Jersey, and she's been a public servant serving many avenues supporting the county. She worked at the Hamilton Police Station and the court system, but most of her time in her career she spent servicing children at the Hamilton Township Library. She worked there for over 30 years as a principal library assistant, and she had many duties, including cataloging and providing many library services. Now Sandy is retired, and she's the author of 2 children's books. So Sandy, why don't you tell me what drove you to want to become an author?
Well, when I was working at the library and working in the children's room shelving, I came across so many cute stories. I mean, I used to bring my daughters in also for story time and bring them into the library. We would have our time at night with reading, and I would play games with them where we would all tell a little part of a story and try to piece it together. And I was journaling, and I just had the drive. I just wanted to do something, write some stories for children, well, for my own children, and then maybe, share it with others. So I went to a seminar at college. It was about publishing, book publishing versus self-published books. And I got to talk to a couple authors there. And then Mercer County Community College had a non-credit course in writing children's books. So I said, well, you know what, let me do this. And
How did you find that experience, taking classes to write books?
Yeah, it was good, I mean, it took a little bit of nerve for me to share my story, but it was great because then, we would critique. And then soon after I did that, I found a group that met at Barnes & Noble, and I started to go there for weekly meetings, and everybody would discuss their books, or they were even doing screenplays too there. So that helped me with my confidence. And we had cats. And watching how they interact with each other and what would scare them and their different personalities. I just started piecing together a story about a little kitten that was afraid of everything.
And that brings us right to this great story, How Snowflake Finds Her Courage. And what I love about this book, it really kind of teaches parents how they can teach their children to have courage.
Mm-hmm.
So let me read the synopsis for your book, which is great.
Okay.
It says, Snowflake was a white kitten, the smallest of the litter. She was afraid of everything. Her sister and brothers called her Scaredy Cat. One day, her siblings were playing in the yard and disappeared. What will Snowflake do? Can she find the courage to save them? So this is a great introduction to what this story teaches, how Snowflake finds her courage. Now, what inspired you specifically to write this story?
Well, when I was a child, one of my favorite books, I would read a lot of those, they're called the Little Golden books. And one was called The Tiny Tawny Kitten, which was about an orange kitten. And I remembered she was afraid. And I didn't quite remember everything that happened in that story, but I remembered it was a cute story. And then I ordered it through a used bookstore, to see if I could find a copy of it and reread it. And the story that I was developing was, of course, it was different than that, but the similarity was about, both cats were afraid. So I just, as I was writing it, I started thinking, what could bring her out of her comfort zone. I grew up watching stories, reading also stories about animal heroes and watching shows like Lassie. There was one story it was a true story about a cat who saved her kittens from a house fire. She carried each one out individually, and I said, animals, they have feelings just like people do. And, cats and dogs, they love each other, they love us. They care for each other, they'll come to each other's rescue. So as the story went, she felt something had happened to her siblings and she needed to do something.
Cut in because I want to kind of highlight how you laid out really nicely how Snowflake was showing signs of fear.
Yes.
The great thing about a children's book is it helps the parent to kind of understand their child more. And the book through Snowflake can help us to see things that children do to show us that they might be dealing with a fear response. What are some of those things that you highlighted that show the fear that Snowflake had?
Well, she was afraid to go outside. The neighbor's dog barking scared her. She would be afraid to go off the porch. And even the children that she lived with, when they were playing in the house, where her brothers and sisters, would be there, playing, she would go scurry under the couch and just watch. She was afraid of loud noises, and just, she became very withdrawn, very shy.
Yeah, that's what made me think when I was reading the book is how sometimes parents don't realize the signs that children show that when they're afraid. Sometimes we just call them shy or timid, or they just don't like to be around people. But a lot of times, and most of the time, it's a sign for the parents to say, okay, my child might be experiencing something that's bringing them fear. And I think the book can encourage the parent to, question the kid and ask them questions about what scares them and why do they react in certain ways. And so these are definitely great signs parents can use, to help their children. But I like to talk about, because today children are facing a lot of fears. And it seems like it's much more visual than it was when maybe we were children. There's so much social media, there's so much happening in the world that they're experiencing and they could read about. What has been your experience with that?
Well, definitely on the social media, you have to watch what your children are looking at. There's a lot of scary stuff out there that pops up, on the screen. You have to watch the sites that you go to. Even with the bullying too that happens. When I was a kid, I didn't want to go to school. I was afraid. I knew I had to get up and do a report in front of the class, and I didn't have the self-esteem. I was afraid to get up there. I thought that somebody was going to make fun of me.
There's so many things young people face today. And in reality, the adults are facing it too.
Yeah.
And sometimes the child can actually absorb the fears of their parents.
Mm-hmm.
So the parents
Yeah.
kind of have to be aware of their fears and how they show that to their
Yeah.
children.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that I write about as an author is that natural fear is a good thing.
Yeah.
Fear is just an emotion that tells you you have to do something.
Yeah.
You have to take an action.
Mm-hmm.
And when you avoid doing that, the fear stays in you and it actually can get worse.
Yeah.
So that's where courage comes in,
Mm-hmm.
because courage really just means doing something difficult
Yeah.
even though you're afraid.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I get that storyline from your book. Can you tell
Mm-hmm.
me more about that?
Yeah, facing your fears. Well, yeah, her siblings, they disappeared, and she had to find out what happened. I mean, she didn't know if they were hurt, in some kind of trouble, and she loved them so much that, she pushed herself. And she had to go find them and see, how she could help them.
That's true.
Yeah.
And I noticed throughout the book, the mother does encourage Snowflake to try not to be so fearful.
Right.
So how do you think parents today could help their kids the same way? What could they say or do for them to help them to have courage?
Well, teach them to love themselves, help them build their self-esteem, expose them to different things, sports or, maybe dancing, singing, have play dates so that way, they're making friends, they're interacting with each other so they, I kind of, I was really shy and I would sort of stand off on the side myself, afraid, like not knowing how to join a group, kind of afraid of being rejected, if I went over and said, hey, can I play with you? I think praising your children, teaching them not to give up. That's the biggest thing.
Definitely.
Just keep with it, you fall off the horse, you get back on again. Don't give up.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I want to take a moment now to address the audience. I would like you to make sure you go out and get How Snowflake Finds Her Courage. And I'd like you to subscribe to this channel and leave comments below so we can find out how the book affected you and your family. Give us your tips and tricks to help your kids to show courage and to deal with fear. So, where the story turns is Snowflake realizes that she has to do something, and she finally starts to show some courage.
Yeah.
What do you think motivated her to do that?
It was the love of her family, her siblings. She cared for them, and the concern for them overpowered the fear. So she was able to, go past that barking dog and go to a area that she wasn't used to, because usually she didn't want to even go off the porch. She was so scared. And then once she faced her fears and she was able to help them, this whole new world opened up to her, which she had been missing out on. She didn't need to be afraid. There was, she had faced her fear and, kind of brought her out of the shell. Now she could enjoy her life.
Definitely. And I think that's a great lesson to teach our kids, that really it's love that's going to motivate us to do the thing that we're afraid to do. Whether it's making a decision, or maybe standing up to a bully, or speaking up when they need support, and realize that love is the answer. The fear is normal. You're going to experience challenges. We have to teach our children you're going to experience challenges. And you're naturally going to be afraid. But if you use love, you can overcome that fear and you learn a lesson and you become stronger.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much. This book, I think, is going to help lots of children get their courage and also remind parents to be courageous as well.
Yeah.
But why don't you tell me, if people want to learn more about you or find your book, where can they go?
Okay, it's available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble online, and also through Balboa Press.
Okay, great. Yeah, just go to Amazon, Google her name, search for her name, and the book will come up. Now, you do have another book. We didn't have time to talk about it. It's called The Best Dog. And the great thing about this book is that it encourages, well, why don't you tell us what it encourages?
Well, to appreciate your dog. This is about a shelter dog that a boy has, and his friends have purebreds that are in dog shows, and he starts second guessing, they're all bragging about their dogs and everything, so he starts second guessing his dog, though, he does love his dog. So his dog kind of proves himself to him. He does something, and the boy just realizes, you're just such a great dog. You don't have to be a purebred. I love you, just as you are. And I want people to appreciate their pets. And there's a lot of shelter animals that need homes. They have great personalities. They're just waiting to be adopted and to be loved.
Yeah, yeah. And I got the little secret message in there that teaches children that being themselves is the best way they can be. Your best self is who you are. You don't have to have anything special.
Right.
So what do we look forward to in the future? What other books are you looking to write?
Well, I have one that I wrote about family vacation. We would always go to the Amish country, and we would go to an amusement park there. So I kind of wrote, it's a family story, about us, going there, the kids having a good time. And, my daughter, she loses something, and it has a lot of, memories, is something that's very important to her, and we need to find it. And it was just a fun story about a, family vacation day. And another one I wrote was about a crossing guard who touched the lives of the children, as we did when my daughters went to school, elementary school. They loved their crossing guard. He was really great, and he was also the Santa Claus, during the Christmas time. And when he passed away, it just kind of left a hole in our heart, And he just was there to just serve the children, He made sure they crossed the street, got to school safely every day.
That's great.
Yeah.
Sounds like some great stories. And when you finish them, definitely come back to the show so we can talk about it some more so our readers can know about it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much for being our guest today.
Thank you.
My final words. This show and this book really made me think about courage. And courage really means doing something even though the outcome may bring us fear or make us feel uncomfortable, or we might even get some backlash. And we need a lot of courage today because we're facing so many uncertainties. People are being torn apart because of differences. And we have to learn how to stand up for those who are weak, and we have to learn to be able to move forward even though times are tough. The economy is not great. politics is a frenzy, and it just makes us feel insecure. But we have to remember the one lesson we learned from Snowflake is that love is the answer. So we should use love whenever we feel free so that we are motivated to take the action we need to make sure that the outcome we're looking for is for the best interest to those who we do love. So thank you again. And next month, our book of the month will be The Ghost Chronicles. This is just in time for Halloween. And the author is Marlo Berliner. And if you check the notes, I'll send the links to that book, and we can talk about it next month at Inside the Cover Book Club with me, your host. Thank you, and have a good evening.